You think you know Gene Simmons? And Kiss? For 35 years, they've been in front of our eyes and ears. You don't know Gene Simmons. Today, Gene Simmons exposes his raw nerve.
I was born in Israel and came to America, and I may as well have been the lead character in Robert Heinlein's Stranger in a Strange Land. I'd never seen Kleenex. I didn't know you could blow your nose into a piece of paper and then throw it away. I'd never heard of television. Literally, we didn't have TV. I didn't know about having a refrigerator. We had ice in a bucket.
Were you on a kibbutz?
No.
Well, you weren't in Tel Aviv.
This was the infancy. I was in right outside of Haifa. This was the infancy of a country that had just been born.
Well, I know that, but they still had some
after.
cities there, and they had electricity.
We didn't live there. You know,
you lived outside of
outside in a small city of Carmel, actually.
I believe I know it now, but
yes, and so we were dirt poor, and my father left us when I was about 7 years of age. So my mother, bless her, went to work every day, and I was home alone.
Wait a minute, this is in Israel.
Yes.
Your father left.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, take me one step further back. You're born in Israel, and your parents struggled through the war, and your father, after all this, leaves?
Well, look, I don't want to get into the nature of what man is or not, sort of biologically.
Well, not man with a capital M, but a small m, but with man-you, yes.
Predominantly, I would say. The numbers are frightening when it comes to just men who just pick up and leave, but that doesn't validate it. That's just a pragmatic understanding that that's what happens in life. However, having said that, the beginning of a new country, when you've just survived the concentration camps of Nazi Germany, doesn't validate it, but it must have been a very, very difficult life for both my mother and my father.
Horrific.
And you're talking about coupons, not even a coupon. Somebody would write on a piece of paper with a stamp and would say, you're allowed, a loaf of bread this week, meat once a week.
We're talking Israel.
Amount. Yes, milk once a week. There was no such thing as grocery stores. I never saw, let me tell you something, when I went to see Moscow on the Hudson, this Robin Williams movie, there's a pivotal scene, and I started crying, just uncontrollably, and I saw this as a grown-up. Robin Williams is a Russian immigrant. He's running away from Russia. He's trying to get asylum here. So he hides and assumes a different name and so on. And he goes to his first supermarket. And he goes up to the cashier and says, excuse me, where is coffee? And the guy says to him, aisle 13. Robin Williams, who's a Russian in the movie, doesn't understand what that means, because when he comes from, you've got to stand in line just to get a loaf of bread. He goes to aisle 13 and he sees a city of coffee, hundreds and hundreds of brands. Coffee. He's so overcome by it that he passes out. When I went to my first supermarket, a Bohack's in Flushing, New York, I will tell you that it was like a city of food, skyscrapers of food. To me as a child, I'd never seen or imagined anything like that. They were literally streets of food. We take all this stuff for granted. I never, to this day, because I've got the eyes and ears and the heart of, I remember who I was as a kid. When I go into a supermarket, Shannon will tell you, mother of my children, I get lost. I just wander because I can't imagine all this stuff, the land of opportunity, America. So don't get me started on America, because
we'll go there. But this is fascinating. So that's at 8. You arrive with that background, and you don't want to get into why your daddy left.
Of course.
Why did your daddy
My
leave?
father left because he wanted other women. He didn't want to be married, and I think in those.
Did he look like you? Your size?
Oh, I look exactly like him.
So
except
he had this
bigger
appeal.
version.
You're a bigger version?
He is. I'm 6'2". He was 6'9".
Wow. At the age of 8, you're now reaching consciousness.
I'm oblivious to all of it. I don't want to come off as he protests too much or anything, but I didn't know anything. I had a rock and a stick, no exaggeration, and those were my toys. Listen, as a child, as far as I knew, I had a completely happy childhood. I had a piece of bread and jam, and I used to stick tons of it on. I still do. People look at me like a barbarian. It's like, put a little, moderation.
You're 8, and you've got a rock and you got a stick. Your mommy and daddy have come from
Hungry.
Hungary and the Holocaust, and your dad goes out on weekends and fights for Israel, and your world is complete because your dad is heroic. What a heroic figure,
Yeah.
right?
And then there's
And
a
then
real,
what happens?
Then there's a real pivotal moment where
Yes.
my dad disappears. He literally was home one day, then he was gone the next.
Couldn't have given up his son like that. There had to have been something.
I don't know. I think it must have been difficult for him to earn a living. He couldn't make ends meet
Did he hold you?
all the time.
Did he kiss you?
Yes.
So he loved you.
But I think he didn't have a sense of himself. He didn't have the self-respect that men need, you know, the sense of worthiness, the what am I besides a father and all that? You know, I believe it's different biologically for men and women. Psychologically, if we don't have a sense of worthiness, I believe a man will self-destruct, and that has to do with what we do. Can we earn a living or can't we?
Well, partly, but surely that feeling is given to you by your parents.
Of course.
If you don't have it by 5, certainly by 10 years of age, you're not going to get it. You've been undermined by your parents.
Well, I believe in a very real way because my father left us. Well, here's what happened. I was 7 years of age. You can't learn this in school. I woke up screaming, crying, scared to death. I remember this as if it was yesterday.
What room are you in?
There is no room. We have one room. In the corner there's a toilet.
Yes.
And in the other corner there's a sink, and that's what we sleep.
Well, where's your mother?
She's working all night.
Okay, so you're alone in the room.
I'm
No
alone in the
brothers or
room, and it's pitch black. You know, there's no, at night, you're not allowed to have lights on. It's total pitch black.
Danger.
Because of air raids and all that stuff.
Okay, so you're alone and you're 7 years old.
7 years of age. Scared to death, crying, angry that there isn't somebody there to come and
Yes.
pick me up and talk to me and stuff. And I remember going out into the terrace, there was a small terrace, and just screaming, raging and crying and scared. Where's my mother? Where's my father? Where's life?
Who are you talking to?
I don't remember. And there was a realization. I couldn't verbalize it then, but it's the same mantra that I hold to today, and that is, I can't depend on anybody else. That means parents, father, mother, anybody, that if I don't get up myself and do it, it's not going to happen. It sounds a little cornball, but it's the mantra by which I've led my life, and it has served me well, because nobody's ever handed me, and why should they? Why should anybody hand anybody a free ride? If I was poor, destitute, I couldn't imagine standing in line and taking anything for free. I just can't do it. I'd rather pick up your garbage and do anything you want, because I want to know that whatever I earn is mine, and I earned it. I was with my mother, and we're standing in front of an official, which in retrospect, I found out was the American consulate in Israel. And he liked her, so he put her ahead of the line. You're going to go in. You just have to promise, you know, not to overthrow the government and stuff like that. So I need for you to raise your right hand. And my mother, bless her, went like this, because she didn't know what she meant. He said, "You will never have to do." I'll get choked. Hold on.
Wow. Do you need those dark glasses?
No.
Because I love to see your eyes.
You would?
Yeah.
They're pretty, you know.
I know they are. Look at that. Let me see.
This is an affectation, in the same way that women wear makeup or anything else. It also helps to cut down the glare.
I know there's a bit of a glare, but
Yeah, but the real reason you put them on is to gain the advantage, so that while you're making this, you're looking around and trying to see what's going on. That's why people
well,
wear shades.
there's nothing going on. There is nothing going on except my desire to understand you an iota.
Okay.
Okay, so this philosophy of the joy of life given to you by your mom, that's stupendous in view of the way you lived for all those years. All those years. I mean, just think of the darkness of your family's history.
Once I came to America, I will tell you that it was beyond anything I would ever imagine. You know, that thing about buildings and cars and we had a little country road. I never saw it. I was on another planet. I was with my mother, and I'll never forget this. I was with my mother, and we're standing in front of an official, which in retrospect, I found out was the American consulate in Israel. And my mother is talking to him in Hebrew and Hungarian, because at that point I spoke Turkish, Spanish, Hebrew, and Hungarian. And in broken Hebrew, she's saying to the guy, you know, I want to leave, and so, and he says, I don't speak Hebrew, and he'd try different languages. You speak English? No. Then he goes, sprechen Sie Deutsch? She goes, ja, ich spreche Deutsch, ich habe gelernt auf der Schule. You know, she says, yes, I can speak. He goes, okay, and they're speaking in German, and I can pick up a few of the words. I can get by. And he liked her, so he put her ahead of the line. You're going to go in. You just have to promise, you know, not to overthrow the government and stuff like that, so I need for you to raise your right hand. And my mother, bless her, went like this, because she didn't know what she meant. He said, you will never have to do... I'll get choked up. Hold on.
Wow. Wow. That simple
You'll
gesture
never have to
brings
do
you
that
back.
ever again. Go like this.
Wow. Gene, that's a phenomenal moment.
And I didn't
She
know
goes
what's
to
going
raise
on.
her hand on the Bible and gives
Yeah.
the Nazis.
Yeah, because you didn't know what...
And this lovely man, this lovely American says, you'll never have to do that again. Spend one more moment with me and tell me how the bass guitar became part of your life.
Well, again, pragmatism rules. I was watching the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show, and I was working. I worked all the time, newspaper routes and in a butcher shop and whatever, from the age of 13 on, 12. And I'm watching the Ed Sullivan Show, and the Beatles come out, and they have funny haircuts and with the hair over the ears. In those days, you actually saw the meat in back of the ear, you know, between the, I mean, they were real crew cuts, the whole thing. And I thought, gee, that's a good job. That's a good job, because the girls want them, they get paid, and they don't have to go to work at 9 to 5. It's funny, at that point I thought of it as a job, not as I sure would like to be famous. I liked the money. It actually is called a music or show business, you know, in light of the true advertising notions. It says so right there in lines. Show business, it's a business. And I recognize that, gee, if I could do that job, you could have the chicks and get paid for it and not have to go and wash the, you know, the fat off the chopping block off a butcher thing, which is what I did. And so then I had my newspaper out, I worked at the butcher shop, and I started playing in a rock band at the same time.
Well, how did you do that?
You get local...
I mean, you don't go from the butcher shop to a rock band.
You keep all that so you can get your weekly money coming in, and you get your
But
friends
how do you
together.
get to the rock band?
You get your friends together. You want to do...
Where's the concept?
The Beatles. It was like, I'm going to try
Okay,
to do
I want
it.
to do what the Beatles are doing.
Right.
So you got to get a guitar.
No, I couldn't play anything, but I could sing, or if I could talk like that. You know, everything is about, Jews is about assimilation, you know? It's like dress British, think Yiddish. Be able, no, I'm Greek, no, I'm Italian, really. Christ, my favorite. I love whatever, just don't kill us. That's the whole method of survival. So it was for a long time, I talk like that. Everything's a question if you come from Liverpool. Yeah, so I had to learn your language.
Which there's no accent there, by the way.
Well, because I studied how Mid-Atlantic sounded, because you could talk it like this, you're going to the club tonight, hey man, like what do you do? And my brother Bob was going to... So you heard all these different sounds in New York, but the guys that were the best dressed spoke like this. So I didn't want to look like the guys who were around me. They weren't as well dressed, they didn't have a good life. It seemed clear to me that the people on television projected the image that worked.
Okay.
When in Rome, do as the Romans. That was,
So
I didn't know that phrase.
It's this moment of seeing the Beatles that you say, I want to do that.
As soon as I get up on stage, the girls immediately had girlfriends. It's true what they say. If you're in a band, you'll get more chicks than if you're a dentist. I wanted to call the band, you know, that four-letter word that begins with F, you know, Frig.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to call the first album You. You. Second album can be, you know, Me.
Right.
Me. Off. Frig Off. And endless variations of all the...
Right.
And who are you going to go see? I'm going to go see you know, the F.
Kiss, how did Kiss come about?
Well, Kiss came about, you know, you're only as good with the people you surround yourself with. I met a guy named Paul Stanley, who was born Stanley Eisen. And we were both aware that the Jewish thing didn't work. And so we're sitting in a subway, we're putting a band together, and his name was Stanley Eisen, and I was either Chaim Witz or Gene Klein, take your point. And we're sitting there, you know, we started to grow our hair and started to, you know, kind of mimic it, chameleon-like what we thought worked. But we were still called by outlander names. It just didn't sound like mainstream stuff. And I remember he was going, I'm going to be Paul Stanley, like that. And I said, I'm going to be Gene Simmons.
How did the name Kiss come about? Where would that?
I wanted to, we were riding in a broken down Camaro that Paul was driving, and I wanted to call the band, of course I wasn't schooled at that point, I wanted to call the band, you know, that four-letter word that begins with F, you know, Frig.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to call the first album You. You. Second album can be, you know, Me. Right. Me. Off. Frig Off. And endless variations of all the...
Right.
And who are you going to go see? I'm going to go see, you know, the F.
Of course, you'd have difficulty advertising.
Well, of course, I didn't think about advertising
right.
or that the marketplace or the FCC would have a problem with it. So it was Paul Stanley who said, how about Kiss? And it was like, when we heard it, we knew it.
4 letters.
4 letters. Every language understands what it means. It could be soft, like a kiss, or the kiss of death. And we immediately started going, that's the name of the band. This is before wearing makeup, before anything. And then we decided we can't look like everybody else. You have to dress differently. So we started to go down to S&M shops down on Christopher Street in New York City. We stopped at pet stores and bought dog collars. And we went to the S&M shops and put studs on our guitar straps and started wearing huge platforms. We're buying all this stuff. Now, by that point, I'm 22. I'd amassed $23,000 in savings.
From the butcher shop?
From Thing and working as a Kelly girl and all this stuff. And I will tell you, from the day that we put the band on, it's now 35 years later, we've broken box office records set by the Beatles and Elvis and played 5,000 concerts or more. We just came back from a stadium tour in South America and Europe, starting an American tour soon. Anything I ever imagined came true.
What's your best song?
The most I like, or my favorite song? Because they're two different things.
Explain that to me.
Well, my favorite song is the one that pays me the most. The one that makes the people come and buy the tickets.
Which one is that?
Rock and Roll All Night.
Okay.
It is a call to arms. It's known around the world, blah, blah, blah. Innumerable other artists have covered the song. And when people hear it anywhere in the world...
When you wrote that?
With Paul Stanley.
With Paul. When you wrote that, what were you thinking?
Pragmatism took over. I had a song called Drive Me Wild. You drive me wild, I'll drive you crazy. It was about a Christine 16. It was about a car. Twin orbs shining in the night, you know, all the obvious sexual innuendo. And it was when Paul and I decided to write an anthem. We need a song. It's like
so you say that?
Oh,
we
yes.
need a song.
Yeah, like the Brill Building writers, you know. Nat King Cole needs a song. Well, it's got to be a ballad. Okay, so it's got to be minor key, and he's got to be singing. Well, we got to use the word love. So you take all those. Here's what we need: ingredients, like a cook. So that's what we did. And Paul came up with Rock and Roll All Night and Party Every Day. I want to rock. So then you go anywhere in the world and everybody sings that because they're silly words. But I will tell you, when you see 100,000 people, and we just did in South America and Europe do that.
Wow.
It's like, and you're talking about a guy that never went to music school, can barely sing.
What, I mean, if we had the time.
I can't read or write a schmeckle of music.
I mean, you're talking musical, you're doing musical terms and musical knowledge that is astonishing for somebody who hasn't studied.
It's not what you learn, it's not what you know, it's how you take that information and distill it to make it work. Because if education was the only thing you'd need, everybody would be successful. And yet, when you take a look at the entrepreneurs and the successful people in the world, a lot of them didn't go to regular school. But I never went to Wharton Business School. I have no clue what marketing means. It's like the truck I drive. I know exactly how to get to someplace. I don't use MapQuest. I know how to go places. I have the 30,000 foot, but if you open that front of the truck and talk to me about the engine, I couldn't tell you squat about how it works or what it does. But it's unnecessary. Don't spend the time to learn that. Hire somebody for 50 bucks, change my wombat and do it with the cross MIDI hash. I don't care about that. That doesn't make me money. The stuff that makes you the money is the big picture, how to connect the big dots.
It's great. Geez, Gene, thank you. Great.
You're a powerful and attractive man. We have a concept of a God that is devoid of human foibles, and yet, if you take a look at remember I was a theology major, so it's just an academic question. If God doesn't have human foibles, you shall have no other gods before you. Because if I ever catch you so much as looking at another God, I shall smite you from the face of the... Sounds like a jealous... Come on.
Sounds like Kiss right there.